That's actually the question of the morning. Have we lost the social in social media? And Jay Baer is going to be leading a great conversation this morning. If you don't know Jay Baer, though, I thought I'd share a couple of things about him. He is a digital marketing expert. He's a great keynote speaker, and he's worked with over 700 major brands, including Nike, Allstate, Walmart, and Best Buy. He is the founder of Convince and Convert, where his team helps companies accelerate their digital marketing results. His blog is ranked as the #1 resource for content marketing, and his book, Utility, is a New York Times bestseller. Would you please welcome Jay Baer?
So, I did finish third on the tweet mention thing yesterday. I could have won, but I purposely did not take a selfie last night at 12:30 when I locked myself out of my room in my underwear. That actually happened. So, here's my advice to you: practice conference restraint. That is, thank you. Great to be back at Social Media Marketing World 2014. I'm really excited about this panel. Let me set the stage a little bit, and I got some notes because I want to make sure I get these facts right so that nobody accuses me of bastardizing the conversation. So Facebook is a $177 billion company. Twitter is a $29 billion company. LinkedIn, a $24 billion company. As you all know, WhatsApp was sold for $19 billion. Pinterest, in their October 2013 financial round, was valued at $3.8 billion, which seems like a bargain. If anybody wants to chip in on that with me, let's do that. So these are not just companies, right? These are huge companies. And most of them have shareholders. They literally have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize their profit, right? Their responsibility, like all public companies, are to shareholders first and to users like us second. And many of these companies are starting to behave like that. That shouldn't be a mystery. Facebook, of course, has changed the algorithm, made organic engagement much, much more difficult. Twitter has set it up so Instagram photos don't show up automatically. Lots of new Twitter advertising options that they'd love for you to purchase. Instagram announced a $100 million advertising deal recently with the ad agency Omnicom. LinkedIn has enabled all of the users to write for them now, which gives them 100 million free content creators. And yesterday, LinkedIn announced their brand new content marketing score, which gives big brands details on how to maximize their presence and increase their ad spend on that platform. So, Google Plus, of course, is starting to really weave itself through the entire Google empire: YouTube, Google Maps, Gmail. Now, look, I'm a capitalist, right? This is a business for me, but I ask us whether or not the baby is being thrown out with the bathwater. I remember a time when we connected authentically with one another in social media. I remember a time when on all blogs, the comments were actually better than the blog posts. I remember when real conversations took place on Twitter and elsewhere every single day. I remember when social media was about connections, not just commerce. Or maybe I've got it all wrong, right? Maybe it's just that as I've done more in social media, my own uses of social media has changed, and that's coloring my perception. But either way, as Phil mentioned, that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Have we lost the social in social media? And to join me in discussing this issue that affects every single person in this room and beyond, we have assembled a fantastic panel. First, my good friend, Jeff Roars. Jeff is the Vice President for Exact Target Marketing Cloud. He's also the author of the fantastic book, Audience, Marketing in the Age of Subscribers, Fans, and Followers. He's here from Cleveland. He's also the co-host of the Social Pros podcast with yours truly. Please welcome Jeffrey Roars. Also a former attorney and DJ. True. It's a true story. Next, her karaoke skills need literally no introduction. She is the president of the social and content consultancy SME Digital, the author of How to Measure Marketing in the Age of Subscribers. Oh, that's Jeff's book. That would be a different book. How to Measure Social Media. I got my notes wrong.
Turn it sideways.
Yes, turn it sideways, exactly. Actually, your session is right after this, right? Nicole's got a session on big brand ROI right after this, so take a look at that. Please welcome from Baltimore, Nicole Kelly. Are you going to wrap it out?
Wrap it out.
All right, at some point.
At
some point. Okay, and lastly, but certainly not leastly, he is a social strategist and CMO at Brand Innovations, co-author of the amazing book, Return on Relationships. He'll be speaking about that after lunch this afternoon. He is a New Yorker, a notable wearer of socks. He'll be giving a sock demonstration here in just a moment. And for many of us, I think he's really the conscience of social media. Please welcome Ted Rubin.
Thanks, Jay. I just want everybody to know that my phone rang at 6:30 this morning, and the sweet tones of Sweet Caroline from Nicole Kelly continuing her karaoke performance from last night.
Please line up and she'll sing to each of you tomorrow morning. Okay. Thank you, panel. Ted, let's start with you. You tweeted recently, I want to make sure I get this tweet right. So you tweeted recently, don't think of social media as advertising. Think of it as communicating with your audience and building relationships. Now, I think we would all agree that's a terrific sentiment, one that we'd all like to embrace. But faced with all the media-oriented developments I just mentioned, is that type of relationship building still viable?
Yes.
Okay, we're off to a big start.
You know, now,
would you like to elaborate on that, Ted?
You know there's no character limitation.
Yeah, we're not answering in tweets. It's okay.
a perfect example of it, it's all based in the way you communicate. I mean, you can give one-word answers, or you can engage. So if somebody asks you, how's your day? You can answer, good. Hope yours is good too. That ends the conversation. Or you can answer, my day's great, how's yours? Which continues the conversation. So for me, it's all about attitude and follow-up. It's really not about whether this is advertising or not. It's about whether you're willing to put the time and the energy in to communicating. You can come to this event, sit in this room, and not speak to one person while you're here, or you can take advantage of the fact that you're living in your Facebook page here, right, today. There are people passing by you. There are opportunities to communicate, and you can reach out and engage with those people. And I think brands have all those opportunities every single day, but they're lazy. They want it to be like old media. They want to be able to say, you know what, guys? This social doesn't work anymore. Facebook's not changing their algorithm. Twitter's filled up with junk. You know, all you get in your feed is advertisements. But I don't even look at my feed. I reach out to people I want to engage with. And every brand can do that, but they want to go back to the old world. What did it used to be? Q4 would come up, and the CMO would take all these millions of people and say, come out with my plan for the next year. They'd all work, they'd put it in front of them, and all they'd really do is shave and take last year's plan, change it a little bit. Christmas would come, they'd approve it, he'd go home, you come back in January, you execute. But now, if you're not evolving it every few weeks, it's over, but they want to live back in the old world. They want social to be just like advertising. You make your buy, and you're done.
Well,
I think it's really about the time you want to put in.
And you're right. It is about time. I mean, you know, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, you know, giving a shit doesn't scale. But
I disagree with that. I disagree with Gary totally. Giving a shit totally scales. Because most people participate in social media vicariously. It's not about how many people are commenting on your blog. It's how many people are reading those comments. It's how many people are reading those posts. I mean, I recently left a company called Collective Bias, and it really came to light for me. Because people saw me in a different light. So they talked to me in a different way, and I'm traveling all over the country. I'm meeting people, and I can't tell you how many CEOs and CMOs I've met that know every pair of socks I've worn. That know that I went surfing with my daughter in Costa Rica and say to me, wow, those photos of your daughter were amazing. They've never commented on my page. They've never liked. Half of them aren't even friends of mine on Facebook. But they're going there and they're seeing what I'm producing.
Jeff, let's talk about the difference between sort of the company side of this and the individual side of this, right? Your book and a lot of the things that you talk about are about audience creation, right? And treating audiences across social and email and content as a valuable asset of the organization. I mean, from a company perspective, don't we need kind of the reach that is very difficult to achieve when you treat social in that sort of authentic fashion that Ted is recommending?
Well, maybe the place to begin is I think the problem is that social media is not some sort of single thing When people say social media, they actually mean many different things, and you need a conversation to make sure you're matching up point to point. So one of my favorite kind of metaphors, parables to explain that is the blind men and the elephant. So, 5, 7 blind men are led into a room and asked to explain what's in the room with them. And one of them says, oh, this is a whip because it's long, it's thin, and it's got a tassel at the end. And one says, no, this is a house, this thing is huge. One of them says, it's a tree, it's rooted to the ground. Another says, no, this is sharp and pointy, this is a weapon. And they're all touching different parts of the elephant. It's still an elephant, but the parts of it are used by the elephant for different reasons. And so as you look at social media, I believe in the authenticity and the human connection piece. But let's not forget there is media in the word itself. And at a basic level of communication, you have a message, you have a medium or a channel that the message travels through, and then you have an audience. And the unique aspect of social media is we are now communicating messages through mediums to audiences who then have audiences. And that's the big amplification effect, and where engagement can take us to places that our traditional advertising couldn't previously. So I think the conversation almost has to begin with which part of the elephant are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because customer service is a completely different conversation. Influencer engagement at a high level at CMOs and CEOs, a completely different engagement. But, companies, despite the fact that it's in front of the Supreme Court right now, companies are not people. They are made up of people. And the question is then, how do you execute that to bring forward the humanity in your brand? And if your brand does not have any humanity, you're going to have a problem getting the kind of reach and impact that you want out of social.
Nicole, you're, of course, one of the foremost experts on social media measurement, and there's always research reports that say that companies are so interested in measuring the financial impact of social, but many of them don't do it very well. But as social maybe becomes more like media, won't that make it easier for companies to sort of measure the impact? Doesn't that fit into sort of Ted's narrative of companies trying to turn this into yesterday's business model?
Yeah, I would say that it is going to make it easier to measure, but that doesn't mean that it's going to make it better in terms of return on investment, right? Because just because you can place an ad, I'm sorry, but consumers have been running away from advertising for a long time. It's why we started to get into social. And what we're starting to see now is that people are migrating from the Facebooks of the world into the paths, into the whispers, into the secrets. We're starting to want more anonymity again. And so, yeah, it is going to inherently make it easier to measure. I argue that social has always been easy to measure. We just haven't been measuring it. But I'm not sure that it's going to make the return on investment any higher. I think it's just going to make it easier for us to have tangible metrics associated with it.
Can I make a comment about that?
Please.
There was a great conversation I had with my business partner, Collective Bias. We're sitting in a room, and we're in front of a big Fortune 500 brand, and I'm trying to explain to them that everything they put out there has way more value than just the impression they're trying to measure. And he kind of grabs me in the table. He goes, dude, if they want to buy impressions, let's just sell them impressions. Okay? If they want to be able to measure it easily, let's give them what they want, because we have a business. Like I was the conscience of Collective Bias. He was the guy that had to bring dollars to the bottom line. He said, let's just sell it to them. So it goes to that approach where if they want to measure it, you can measure it. We'll give you something to measure, but that doesn't mean it's going to give you the best ROI.
Yeah.
And again, I had to back down a little bit because we needed revenue. But the truth of the matter is it goes way beyond that. And then towards Jeff's comment about different silos, I'm a big advocator that those silos have to come together. I think customer service isn't just customer service. I think customer service is the best time to market to people. It's when they're listening to you. It's when my daughter asks me for money. She puts out her hand, and she knows that if she doesn't listen to me, she's not getting anything on her hand. But now I've got her full attention. I'm not saying leverage it by saying do this and I'll give you money, but she's listening to every single word coming out of my mouth, waiting for me to say, here's the money. And a consumer that calls a customer service line is listening to every word out of your mouth, looking for resolution. Why not be embracing that time to build the relationship, to market to them in a way that benefits them, not advertises. Not here's 10% off, but a conversation about how they can improve their experience.
Well, it's just like the conversation we were having before. Like, isn't it such a shame that great customer service is the exception rather than the rule?
Right.
If you give really great customer service, you're already marketing yourself. You don't even have to do any, belligerent marketing with anyone, but just give really great customer service. And it's just such a shame to me that we get so excited about great customer service because we're so used to being treated like crap.
It's about expectations. It's about what
Yeah.
you said. I was having a conversation yesterday with Amang Shah from Walmart, who runs corporate social for Walmart, and he was saying, can you believe people actually thought that 16% reach on Facebook was good? Now they're saying, oh my God, we missed the old days when we could reach 16% of the people because we're only reaching 2, but it sucked. But there was a reason for that. It's because we were waiting for those people to come to our pages instead of going to theirs, and that's probably time for another question, so we'll save that.
I'm glad that Nicole reminded me of the
I'm
secret
gonna get
app
comfortable.
too.
How about
because,
you guys? Come on, guys.
Oh,
Take your coats off. Let's
taking
get
stuff
comfortable.
off now.
Let's
Yeah,
get
look at that.
social.
Raising the bar.
Look at that. It'll be just down to socks by the end.
Woo!
I'm glad you reminded me of the secret app because that's where I should have put the underwear story. I forgot all about that. Next time. Damn it. Okay, so Nicole, you also run a very popular blog, and there's been a lot of conversation recently about blog comments, and of course, Copy Bloggers announced that they're going to stop having comments on their blog. At this point, which would you prefer? A comment on the blog or a tweet or a share? Because one is about engagement and one is about reach, which are two, potentially correlated but really different behaviors. As somebody who runs a big blog, which would you prefer if you had to pick one?
So I measure the success of our blog in terms of how many comments our posts get. I care less about how many tweets and retweets it gets. I certainly look at the reach, but ultimately, like, the reason that we have a blog is we want to strike up a chord, a conversation. We want to push the envelope and get people to think differently. And so I say that if people aren't commenting on our blogs, the post was not good enough. And that's the bar that we set. And I think as brands, when we're looking at the blog posts that we're putting out there and we're looking at how far they go, at the end of the day, if your blog posts don't strike up a conversation, I'm sorry, they're just not good enough. And we have got to stop publishing crap.
But I'll dovetail on that, though, and say, though, that because of the expansion of social media, those conversations are taking place in other channels.
Sure.
And because the consumer, that's where they're comfortable. So if there's a Facebook conversation, I don't know that there's any less validity to that being in your comments as opposed to being over at Facebook.
But there are apps that'll bring in that Facebook conversation now, too.
Sure. But I think, as you look to measure that, one of the things that I've tried to put forward relative to audience and how you measure that as a success factor is it isn't just size, it isn't just value, it's size, engagement, value, all three of them, right? We don't want to just grow reach, we want to grow engagement, and we want to affect the bottom line. These three things work in combination. And so it's okay to have objectives that focus on one as long as your strategy has the totality in place. And social, the human aspect of that, absolutely plays a part in the engagement piece. And it can play a part in the size, because if you're having that kind of personal connectivity, those people are more likely to amplify, which gets you greater folks. But again, we're bottom line businesses. We have to pay the rent. And so the topic at hand, is, are we losing the social and social media? No. Consumers, people, humans, us as humans, not as marketers. We're extraordinarily social in all these channels, right? As we limit it to the marketing conversation, it's now maturing as a business, right? And that's fine, because guess what? If advertising isn't going to go away, you are always going to pay to reach audiences you don't yet reach. The question is, who's going to do the more efficient job of converting them into personal relationships so you have a lower cost to reach them in the future?
As more and more businesses, though, jump on that advertising train, we'll start to see a lot more of them as more of the social networks roll out self-serve advertising. I'm sure that will come to Instagram eventually, et cetera. At what point do we see a consumer backlash? I mean, as I mentioned in my session, one of my sessions yesterday, brands are tolerated in social only because they make it free for the rest of us. Nobody says, wow, my interaction with companies is my favorite part of social media. I mean,
right.
nobody's on
Nobody's on Facebook. Nobody's on
individual
Facebook
companies, yeah.
for the advertising except the advertisers. But on Facebook and other channels, people associate with brands to express something about themselves. It's no different than wearing the Nike cap or having the name of your favorite sports team on your jersey.
Yeah. It's digital bumper
That's
stickering.
the interesting thing in that particular channel. So I would put an asterisk by that statement that once they're there, they want to express themselves, and naturally, organically, they will express themselves through brands, because that's the nature we live today.
You want to disagree with me?
Are you taking off another piece?
Very passionately.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna ask left shoe, please.
You know, listen, it's like the magician who gets the eye off the ball. Bring it somewhere else. But I think that people love when brands communicate with them in a human way. My friend Brian Kramer calls it human to human, H to H, which is his hashtag. And I think that, I work with mom bloggers all over the country, and oh my God, how thrilled they are when a brand actually communicates with them on their page, not with an advertisement, not with pushing out something, but with actual, how was your day today? Or we noticed that you went to Disney last week, and it's not Disney reaching out to them. What'd you think about it? Then going back to Nicole's comment about, comments versus tweets, I think that really depends on what your objectives are. And I also think that people are not commenting on blogs the way they used to because there's just way too many. And I think the expectation of, if you don't get a lot of comments, then the blog is not worthwhile. I think that's absolute and utter nonsense. I 100% agree with the stop producing crap, but I think crap depends on who you're pushing it to. So you and I might look at a brand's blog and say, look at Dwayne Reed and say, that's crap. They're talking about New York lifestyle. They're talking about, they're posting photos of the New York skyline. But what we discovered when we were working with Dwayne Reed and growing their following, which grew from 900 Twitter followers to 2 million, was that that's what their audience wanted. They wanted photos of New York. They didn't want to hear about specials or pharmaceuticals or, you have to reach out and listen. You have to see what people want to do. And then I also, again, what I find is that I will never ask a question at the end of a blog post. Because first of all, it's like, please give me a comment. It's like you're begging for it, number one. Number two is, you're not going to get it. So when you ask a question and then there's no comments, that looks really bad. But what I find, right? Okay, like Seth Godin says, Seth doesn't accept comments because he says, this is my house. I don't want you coming in my house and telling me what you think about it. Discuss that somewhere else. As Jeff said, those conversations are happening other places. When I want comments, I go to Facebook. So if I have a blog post I want comments for, I take the first paragraph, I post it on Facebook, I get 80 comments, I screenshot it, and I put those comments into my blog. And then it creates context around the blog post with the way because people on Facebook will engage way quicker on something you post than they will on your own blog. Conversation happens there a lot more actively because they know their friends are seeing it and sharing it. So.
Well,
that's what I have to say.
Okay, so you said that it was crap what I said, right?
No, I did not. I
think he said utter nonsense.
Utter nonsense.
Don't write
utter
that.
nonsense.
I didn't use the word
crap.
crap.
I think that I've earned the right to respond to that, right? I honestly, I think it does depend on your goal, right? And if reach is your goal, then fine. But guess what? Reach doesn't pay the bills. And for us, we are looking at, our blog, and the reason that we write content is that we want to push controversy. And so for us, comments is a measure of success.
Those conversations are happening in other places. Jeff made the perfect point.
And I
so
didn't.
It's not about whether the comments or the conversation is happening on your blog.
I didn't say it had to be on your blog. I said comments,
Sweet
right? So
Caroline.
Yes, but I would argue that if you're measuring success of social in terms of how much you grew a following, I would say that that's not a measure of success either. Like at the end of the day, it's not about how many fans or followers we have. It's about whether or not we can turn this into a revenue-producing engine for a brand. And if we can't do that, then I'm sorry. The brand should not be in social. We either need to be able to save money by doing something in social, or we need to produce revenue.
How about share of voice? So if you can't measure, who cares about share of voice?
I don't care about share of voice.
Who are you going to compare your share of voice to?
Yeah,
you're
like I'm
me?
sorry. What? Like okay, so we only listen to our own brand and our competitors.
Other people that are doing it, people that are in the space.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think share of voice is overrated personally.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
all the social media measurement companies in the house are like,
okay, so let me say,
my phone's lighting up right now.
This is an important line of conversation because share of voice is a C-suite statistic.
Totally, yeah.
So
because it's chest beating, right?
Right. So who are you talking to? We talk a lot about ROI, right? And you can say that reach isn't an ultimate goal, but again, let's get back to size, engagement, value, right? There are 3 things you were trying to do. Reach helps you get more people for the next time. It increases size, which can increase engagement, which can increase value. You're trying to grow them all. And the problem that I think we have is that we're not communicating as individuals up to the C-suite metrics that they truly appreciate. And I'm going to preach this gospel in about an hour, that we have to get them understanding the asset value that we're creating. The asset is not in the tweet. The asset is not in the blog post. The asset is in the owned media. The asset is in the proprietary audience. Those are the things you are creating that have longevity. And the question is, are we organizing and using these channels effectively so that you're growing those assets and you have a competitive advantage?
I mean, definitely from a C-suite standpoint, the more is more, right? I mean, more audience is more assets. That totally makes sense. But as individuals, we are, even if it's not intentional, engaging in the same behavior, right? How many people here have fewer Twitter followers today than they did at this conference last year? Nobody. How many people have fewer fans on Facebook this year than they did last year? Nobody. So at the end of the day, I mean, Ted, you follow, what is this number here? You follow 190,000 people on Twitter. How does that make, it's crazy. Doesn't
Yeah,
that
but you
totally
should see
fly
his
in?
Fitbit statistics.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Unreal the number of steps he has following them.
Doesn't that sort of conceptually fly in the face of your whole premise of individualized connection? It seems like that's just.
If you look at following people as a way of connection, no. But to me, that's just respecting the people that are following me, number one, following them back. But that's really a Guy Kawasaki thing. Like, I'm following them back to show that I like them because they like me. The truth of the matter is, flat out, I follow them back because then they don't unfollow me. I mean, it's really just a metric about execution. No. So, but taking this
Tweet
back.
that, people. Tweet that one.
But please do. I mean, I say it wherever I speak, and I'll tell anybody who I'm teaching about Twitter. But something that Nicole's mentioned in her, I don't know if you guys were in her session yesterday, but it was excellent because she got to the heart of all this conversation, that it all comes back to conversion. Okay, so it doesn't matter what it is that's an important metric to you. It's a matter of how does it convert to more business for your company, if that's what you're in the business to produce. So for me, what I'm saying is share of voice is a very important metric, but it's only important if you've learned how to measure it, if you've learned how to say, if our share of voice grows 10%, then our conversions grow X%.
Yeah.
So if you're not looking at it that way, then you're not doing it. So going back to the following thing, you know, who here actually engages with people via their general feed? You know,
right, but the whole premise of this panel is that we used to do that.
Yeah,
that's my point.
No,
like,
but
we used to do that. We used to actually interact with people on Twitter and Facebook, and that those moments of kismet that used to happen.
But it still
and now
does.
it doesn't like it.
We used to have a much
because everybody's following.
We used
so
to have a
many
much
people.
more social selling methodology. It was called door-to-door salesman. Right? So,
I pine for those days.
Right? And what happened? That was very social.
You would have been
And
really
guess
good
what?
at that, showing up at the door and
My brother was amazing,
right?
And he could sell.
And what happened? We kind of became more antisocial in a way as a society. We didn't like that kind of infringement on our doorstep.
I think it's
well, but it's coming back to certain parts of the population. So I take issue with one thing you said earlier, that everybody likes, you know, when brands talk to them. Hell no. Hell no. We did research a couple of years ago, and when people follow or when people would like a brand on Facebook, somewhere near 40% of the people said, just because I like a brand doesn't mean I want them to post anything in my feed. They follow them to express something about themselves, not to have this brand creepily reach out to them without provocation.
I like the hand gesture when you say that, too. That
I can do a lot of hand gestures.
What was that?
He's got socks, I got hand
What was the name
gestures.
of that TV show?
But
Thriller or something with the hand that came up out of the...
Addams Family? Addams Family.
No, not the Addams Family.
Which one?
I'm much older
Hand.
than...
No, the Addams Family.
You're about...
Hand.
You're
Yeah.
No, not just that one. No, the one
All right,
with
let's
that...
steer this back to the point at hand.
Okay.
Thank you, Ted.
The point at hand is, we can't, just like we are all different in this room, we can't think of consumers as some monolithic group. We are all fragmented and fractured across device, across channel now, and that's what we're wrestling with, is that there are channels that are right for certain brands in this room, there are channels that are wrong. Just like there are consumers who like certain things happening to them on Facebook and other channels, and others who don't. And that's the navigation we're going to have to do now, because the channel proliferation is slowing down, and they're maturing.
And I would say that what I think is interesting is that, you know, we've had side conversations about what's happening with Facebook and their decreasing reach. The thing that's interesting to me is that we think about brands being in social as the brand, the company that, you know, my Twitter avatar is a company logo. And we forget to realize that all of our employees are on social and they're representing our brand in some way, and we're not doing enough to give them a voice, because ultimately they can have a conversation on your Facebook wall, and guess what? It's welcomed. And we're not really doing anything to make sure that our employees are, you know, not necessarily talking about our brand, but, you know, that they're being good advocates for us in social, and that we're actually empowering them to do that. We have these social media policies that make people terrified to be on social, instead of empowering them to do the things that we want want them to do on social. We want them to share our content on social. We want them, if they see a customer having an issue, to make sure that that issue is resolved. Instead of having this, like, the minute that you get lawyers involved in social media policies, it just turns into something that makes my eyes bleed.
All right, I'm a recovering attorney. I agree with part of that.
I thouut you were
But I will
The
tell
rest of
you
it is utter nonsense.
that some of the
Utter
best
nonsense.
some of
That's
the
what I'm
best
about.
companies responding and empowering their customers have a hand-in-hand relationship with their legal department.
Absolutely.
And their legal department has overcome those things because they understand the positives. And one of the reasons I got out of the law is I was in litigation, and litigation is reliving the worst moments of other people's lives. Plain and simple, right? You don't want to go to court. Nobody wants to go to court. So what you have to do is educate your attorneys to the fact that, look, we're not trying to push you into, a problem. What we're trying to do is navigate the positives. Lawyers are they're trained to see the cracks. We have to have them see the steps that they can take. But I will say this, it's not a uniform thing that all your employees should be tweeting and socially engaging with your customers. And that hit me right in the face when I was working on the book. I was talking with Matt Fish, the proprietor of Melt Bar and Grilled, great grilled cheese sandwich place in Lakewood, Ohio, where I live. And Matt said, I don't want my employees on their mobile phones during the day, and I do not want them engaging in social media on my behalf. We are curating a brand here, and so there are select people who are able to engage. And he gave me an example. He said, one of my folks, not seeking to do harm, tweeted out, hey, we got seats open, come in and get fat and happy. And he doesn't want to convey that image about the food and the place. That's not what he wants to convey. So he's made a business decision. And that's what we have to realize, that as marketers, we are in businesses. There are business and brand decisions here. And certain brands can do certain things in social media because they have that fun, that personal touch, everything cooked in. Other ones may make other decisions. And there's no right or wrong, just as we go back to the comments decision that Brian made, a copy blogger. That's a business decision for him. You have to decide what are the business decisions for you, what are the channels that work best, and then put the throttle down to maximize the return there.
But I would say that that's a really naive perspective to think that just because he
Absolutely.
doesn't want them to be in social on behalf of the brand, that they're not representing his brand in social.
Oh, no, he will still talk to them about that, but he does not want them engaging in that way. He has got folks that he will have engage in social.
But I think Nicole's point is that you can't control that from happening. It's going to happen anyway.
Right.
So if you don't engage,
No. He can control that from an employee. He is an employer. He can control that and say, I don't want you doing this.
he
and
can
that's a
say it,
policy.
but it doesn't mean they're not going to do it. It's not going to mean they're not going to get
If
another handle where they're going to do it from.
If they step over the line, they're fired.
Social media policies will never be able to cure stupid.
That's like saying you
Absolutely. Absolutely.
True.
But you know what?
but you can't keep them off their phones. You can't. I mean, look.
Yes, you can. As servers in a restaurant, you absolutely can. You do not want your servers on their phone all the time.
No,
So
no,
he's made a
but
decision.
what you're going to do is you're going to encourage them to sneak it. You're going to encourage them to
Nope.
take more. There are more cigarette breaks in this country now than there were 3
I-
years ago. You think there's more smokers in this country? People are going out and just getting on their iPhones. They're using that screen. You can't block people from those channels.
Okay, let me steer this back. This is getting a little off topic here. This is not a social media policy panel. I think your point, though, each of you have mentioned mobile phones and smartphones in the last few minutes, and I think there might be something there. The percentage of social media behaviors that are stemming from mobile devices now has obviously gone up extraordinarily high in the last 3 years. Do you think that is part of the issue? I find personally it is much easier to post from a mobile device than it is to listen to social on a mobile device. It's awfully hard to use any sort of stream column thing on a phone. It's just hard. It's just visually hard. And so as more and more people use phones for their social habit, do you think that that is what's causing part of this media instead of social? Because just physiologically, it's harder to consume content on that small screen.
I think a big part of this goes to your perspective before about you're looking at social the way you use it. So we're social media professionals. So we manage multiple handles. We have multiple streams. We're worried about comments. We're worried about sends. We're worried about inbox. We're worried about direct messages. But the average consumer has one Twitter handle, maybe one Facebook page. And I think that yes, it is obviously more difficult than on a screen, but they're also adapting. Half of these people aren't even using laptops anymore. We use them because
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's my point.
No, but what I mean is that they're adapting. it's evolution. They're getting much better at engaging on a mobile device, and I think that's going to increase as time goes on.
Did you have anything in that mobile data report you guys just put out on that sort of concept?
I don't know if we did on that concept, but you know, thinking about your question, I know that just from my own behavior, I will withhold certain replies because I need the larger environment, right? A more thoughtful reply, especially written, takes some time, and doing this is, you know, there's only so much time that you have. But I think mobile also opens up much more responsive and much more contribution opportunities for consumers that you don't obviously have on the laptop. So what you lose, you gain, I think, a lot more.
I think it goes more to the engagement question than the content, because it's harder to absorb content on a mobile phone, but it's easier to engage.
Yeah.
So the back and forth is much quicker. Just like, I mean, there was a recent article that I was discussing with Brian Kramer the other day about how kids are actually using social media the right way because they're talking to each other. They're sharing information about where they're going to be. They're engaging. It's not just about who wrote the best post or, you know, engaging in content. It's engaging with each other.
Yeah.
I think mobile is really, really interesting because I think mobile is actually bringing the social back into social. I mean, mobile is one-to-one communications. I mean, we work with a couple of clients that, you know, all of their employees don't have email addresses, and email has become the standard for communication in business. It boggles my mind that we send this many emails. Literally, I think sometimes we just write emails so people think that we're doing something, you know? Like, if I copy 100 people on this email, everyone knows I still exist and I still have a job. So that's what I'm going to do. And so when you're dealing with companies that are very dispersed and very fragmented and employees don't have email, the only way to communicate with employees is through the mobile device. And, you know, we've done some field research with these clients, and we're finding that everyone has a smartphone. It doesn't matter, you know, what kind of job you have or what level of pay you have. Like, everyone in these facilities had smartphones. And so we need to look at mobile from a brand perspective a lot stronger, not only as a communication platform for marketing or our brand, but also for how we communicate with our employees.
All right, let's open it up to audience questions. I don't think all hope is lost here, right? I think we can balance the social and the media, but I mean, social this is a big business now. This conference sitting right here is proof of the fact that this is a big business now. I'd like to hear what the audience has to say about this important topic and questions that you may have for the panelists. There's microphones in the aisles. There's one there, there's one in the middle, and there's one in the far aisle there. So please step to the microphone. We've got about 9 minutes for questions. We'd love to hear from you, so give it a shot, ladies and gentlemen. If you have one there, just go up to the microphone right to your left, sir, or we'll have that one.
Hi, Lauren Gray with Standing Dog. Quick question. Do you feel that the integration of us as corporate people becoming advertisers on social media, then aren't we opening the door of dialogue for people to actually begin to reach us as an individual rather than just trying to brand ourselves and identify ourselves as a brand? But we're now opening a door of dialogue, whether it's an employee talking about our business or whether it's a structured means of communication. But aren't we opening the dialogue that says, instead of just listening to what we have to say to you, you have an opportunity to now begin to work with us, talk to us, and have a better idea of what it is that they may want from us as a company?
I would say absolutely 100%. And I think that's one of the things that I don't see a lot of brands encouraging is actually understanding what their customers need and want from them. You know, we sit here and we make all these assumptions about what kind of content they like, you know, what we're going to do on our websites, how we're going to talk to them in social. And we're doing a lot of talking at people and not a lot of talking with people.
How about a simple, how can I help you? I mean, I had an interaction with Adobe, and, you know, going back to empowering employees. And I'm a divorced dad. My daughter wanted Adobe Photoshop. She reached out to me. We had that conversation because it was an expensive thing. She had to explain to me why she wanted it. I said, great, I'll get it for you. Of course, the next word's out of her mouth. Some of you guys can recognize this conversation. Oh, Dad, can we get the real one? Mom says you'll buy it from a pirated site. You know, so come on over, we'll do it. Anybody here ever tried to download Adobe Photoshop? Nightmare, right? So it can't get done. Text is going off, when are you coming home from her mom? My daughter's saying to me, Dad, how come you're not getting me the right thing? It's after 6 o'clock, customer service isn't answering. I go to Twitter, I don't go to Adobe, I just reach out expecting someone like Jay or Jeff to help me, saying, anybody help me download Adobe? And within 10 minutes, I had tweets from 10 different Adobe employees all over the globe in all different jobs. And they asked me, talk about how you can easily manage this legally. They asked me a simple question. How can I help you?
Every employee is in customer service, whether they'd like to be or not.
How can I help you? It's that easy.
Just a short one. This seems like a lot of gloom and doom here. So I'd like to kind of turn this around a bit and ask some uplifting, positive things that we can be doing.
I don't.
It's pretty early for
I
that.
didn't see this as gloom and doom. I mean,
I don't see it as gloom. This is evolution.
Yeah,
this
it's-
isn't gloom and doom.
It's business. We have the
social
same
media
thing
is
happen in
allowing people to connect with each other, with brands in ways that never before have we had. There's no gloom and doom there, but there's maturation, and that's what I think everybody in the room has to walk away from. This is not what social media was 5 years ago. There's going to be more money. There's going to be more ROI required out of it, but it doesn't stop you from being friendly and personable and open and having a brand that does that and cooking it into your approach. But what I'm saying is that of everybody in this room, there will probably be that many strategies. They are going to be that different. And the uniformity is going to leave. There are going to be brands who can buy their way into social relationships that other brands cannot. That's the reality today. But on the flip side of that, there's also amazing creativity that can happen. There's a kid in Sweden who has 25 million subscribers on YouTube who does nothing but post videos of himself playing and critiquing video games. He makes hundreds of thousands of
I
Oh,
dollars
know
a month.
exactly who you're talking about.
I think it's just the opposite of gloom and doom.
That's
I think
amazing.
it's better now than it was before because everybody used to be able to do it so easily. Now you've got to be good. You've got to go out there and actually engage with people. You want people on Facebook. You want to get value out of Facebook. You can't just buy 2 million fans and post shit on your page. You've actually got to go to their pages. You've got to see what they're doing. I mean, to me, the opportunity is just the opposite. I think it's bigger and better, and I think that it's way the opposite of gloom and doom. I'm excited about the prospects. I think that people stand out now, and you have the opportunity because everybody's doing what everybody else always did: buy the same media, do the same thing. You make this uniform. We're gonna make this strategic, and everyone's gonna do it the same way. But if you can stand out yourself, it's the age of influence, man. Anybody can build a brand. Look at this kid in Sweden. You can compete with major companies.
You're hitting on something interesting. The people who approach, there's going to be a wave of people approaching social just like it's advertising. The media planners are coming in.
Right.
That's the opportunity for everybody.
And that's
because
advertising.
We know the truth. That's a piece of the puzzle. But the social engagement piece of it gives you incredible opportunity beyond that.
Hi there.
Yes.
Well, I had a different question, but now that he brought up the doom and gloom, I thought it would be necessary to have you guys heard of Digital Detox and Levi Felix and what he's doing? Talking about having a healthier relationship with social media and mobile.
Yep.
So we saw with MySpace, when marketing came in and robots came in and all of that, it just turned into, digital ghetto of some sort. No one uses it.
Let's be clear, when Rupert Murdoch came in,
Yeah.
Right. Well,
right, which was big brand wanting to monetize and just pure monetization, not focusing on the community and growing its health.
Exactly. So I'm just wondering if you think that is happening to Facebook now, because the
Yes.
title of this speech or whatever, or talk, was, it just seems like it's going more to the media than the social. So do we see this happening? What happened to MySpace happening to Facebook quickly, or what are your thoughts there?
I mean, it's like I said in my opening. I don't begrudge them, but it's a business. It's a public company, right? Your enjoyment of social media is not their priority. No, frankly, shouldn't be. So is it going to be like MySpace on Facebook? I don't know. I think they're smarter than that. But they continue to make moves that are not in the best interest of users. I don't think there's any question about that.
And I would say, I mean, it drives me crazy that they have an algorithm for what I see in my news feed, quite frankly. Because I have a lot of friends that are obviously in the social space. You guys post a lot, you get a lot of comments and a lot of likes, but one of my best friends in the world posts on Facebook and I don't see it. That makes me angry because just because she's not a social media person and doesn't have a bunch of friends on Facebook, I still care about her stuff and I have to go looking for it. So I would say that, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think there's a really big opportunity for some of these other applications like, Path and Whisper and Secret. I think the reason that the people are looking for this one-on-one Snapchat.
A more intimate experience.
Yeah, it's that's how kids are using social now. The reason they're not going to Facebook is because they want to actually talk to each other.
And because Ted's on.
Yeah.
Right.
Jeff?
Hey guys. So you guys were talking a lot about public social media, what's happening on Facebook and Twitter, but I read an interesting statistic that showed most people are using private social media like WhatsApp
Yep.
and Snapchat and everything. Do you think brands have chased people off of public channels?
I don't know that brands have necessarily chased people off of public channels, but I think, as Nicole just said, I mean, people crave a more intimate experience and maybe something around topical interests as opposed to just social graph So I think there's a combination of brand influence, but also just, social media is not as intimate as it once was because there's so many more people doing it. It just changes the dynamic.
I would say that parents and grandparents have driven more kids off of social media.
Yeah, no doubt.
Brands.
No doubt.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Bring up the path thing.
I mean, my son's in the audience. He didn't want to be on Facebook, talking with me there. I will infinitely make him not cool if I do that. But I think I'm not the only one to use this metaphor. There's a nightclub effect here. There's a generational nightclub effect, right? MySpace was a nightclub for a particular generation. Before that, it was Friendster. Now it's Facebook. Facebook is wrestling with becoming an uncool nightclub, right? Every generation kind of has its own hipness, and so they find and gravitate to their own channels. As brands rush in there, it represents a certain amount of maturity and responsibility, and as it reaches critical mass, it becomes uncool. It's just like a band, right? U2 was the coolest alternative band in the world in the mid-'80s, and now people roll their eyes when Bono puts on those glasses and talks about, the red card or whatever, right? Because everybody likes them, right? Coldplay is coming out with a new album. We all roll their eyes because they're the biggest.
Kings of Leon, same.
Right. So, I mean, this is a natural cultural shift. Facebook's challenge, I think we're hitting on something important. They need to reaffirm to their users that they're trying to improve the experience for the users. So you started off with an interesting statement about, the shareholders and us. There's a third group, and that's the humans, right? The consumers, right? So you've got marketers, you've got shareholders, you've got consumers. And Facebook's interesting challenge is, I think they've got to elevate that consumer experience and really think about giving them the best personal experience. And the revenue and the shareholder value will flow from that.
Well, I think we talked about it yesterday. I think Google Plus is actually doing that really well right now, and Facebook, frankly, is not. Right over here.
Yeah, with brands and consumers' interests aligning at the point where the consumers are finding an interaction. That social that you talked about is in the customer service side. And I haven't heard a lot of discussion about the ROI, or the value of the increased brand value, literally the value of the company at appreciation time when, for example, a Comcast or a Southwest increases their perception in the consumer's mind because of that better customer service via social media.
It's the most important part of social media. I mean, if you're not great at reactive social media, you've got no business doing any proactive social media. Period. If you're not amazing at customer service, why are you buying Facebook ads? Right? You've got it all backwards, right? The companies that really get it are those that are using social to interact at the customer's point of need, the way Ted was talking about. I mean, that's the magic.
I mean, look at JetBlue and the way they interact with people. They were probably the first airline to really start doing it, where they engage people and they build up their brand reputation. I mean, I like to say that a brand is what you do, a reputation
customer
is what
service
people
is
remember.
Marketing, right?
And customer service is more, and that's what we were talking about before with bringing those silos together. So I think that, I mean, if you're there and you're not responding, I mean, perfect example is, and we were talking about this earlier, is GoGo. I mean, who's had lousy experiences with GoGo in the last year? I mean, I had my first flight in 6 months where I was actually able to send out an email. And I think Nicole wrote a post on her Facebook page that was a little bit even more aggressive than mine, but I basically said, fix it or just take it down. I'd rather it not even be there. And all of a sudden now they don't answer on social at all anymore. You used to be able to tweet GoGo, they'd get back to you, they'd say, sorry, we'll do this, we'll fix that. Now they are dead quiet. And you can't do that. You can't just go away.
Just to be clear, my post wasn't actually aggressive. I used them for my own entertainment and told them that it was the internet circa 1993, and I could not appreciate it without overalls and butterfly clips.
That's utter nonsense.
and that.
To me, that's
All right, last question, and then we'll let you out of here. Jesse.
Hey, guys. So I hear a lot of talk about social media is a communication and interaction and engagement tool. That's a lot of communication type words. Back in 2008, there was this conference also here in San Diego called Graphing Social Patterns. And at that conference, a lot of the talk was on how in 5 years, social media would be this all-encompassing focus on where relationships aren't just owned by Facebook, aren't just owned by Google Plus wasn't even around then, but in fact Twitter was barely around then. But the relationships would be all over and not owned by anyone. I want to get back to the relationship side. How can brands start to look at the close family and friend relationships and better start identifying that? And where do you see that starting to evolve beyond just the communication engagement side? What are better ways that people can tie into these relationships that people have?
It's a big question, but let's answer it quickly so we can stay on time. Ted.
You're talking about how the relationship that interact between their consumers, or you're talking about the relationship between the brand and the consumer? You're talking about
between consumers.
Yeah.
So, I think that goes to the whole nature of social. It's about sharing. It's about people wanting, we all know that people prefer reviews from people they know rather than advertising from a brand. So I think it's happening, but it's a matter of how we let it go. Do we turn it into strictly advertising, or do we empower our employees to share? Even taking that a step further, do we empower our employees to build their personal brands so that they become more valuable to us as employees and their ability to share? So I think that's all a part of this staying social versus becoming an advertising media.
Well said.
And I would just say, I think it opens up the door for a really interesting point for data, because as you know, I'm a data junkie. Like, I see the world in ones and zeros. And so from a data perspective, what I think is interesting when we start to look at the social graph and those relationships is there's a lot of insight there that just to understand this 360-degree view of our customer base, to understand their relationships, what they care about. When you talk about reaching out and building relationships, and first to build a relationship, we need to know something about that person, not our whole customer base, that individual. We need to know something about them. And so to me, that's really exciting, where we can start to collect that data and actually turn it into something that could be actionable.
So your homework assignment. The One-to-One Future by Peppers and Rogers is 21 years old. Go back and read that book. Permission Marketing turns 15 from Seth Godin this year. Read that book. Flip the Funnel from Joseph Jaffe about turning your customers into your best marketing tools. Those three in combination really have inspired a lot of my thinking. And if we think about one-to-one media, what's really interesting is the flip that's coming around back to CRM, because you need a foundation, you need to know who people are. And right now, as you alluded to, the email address is the one kind of through line. It could be the mobile phone number in the future. So there's a redefinition going on of CRM right now. It used to be, you thought of it as just sales, but all of our companies have to have that fundamental database and tie it back to that so that you can understand who the people are. If you can't understand who the individuals are, you can't truly be social and know their needs.
Thank you so much to our fantastic panel. Thank you all for being here. Please welcome back Phil and Mershawn.